Hello, my name is Claire Leffingwell, and I'm a junior psychology major here at Washburn. Throughout the semester, we've been learning about various memory concepts and how they're portrayed in the media. One of the most prominent forms of media that we're consistently exposed to in our everyday life is social media, which includes platforms such as Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, things like that, and there's a lot of other ones. The platform that we'll be primarily focusing on in this presentation is Snapchat. Snapchat, just really briefly, is a photo messaging app that is used by approximately 190 million users each day. Snapchat is famous and kind of known for its temporary qualities, where users send photos and messages to each other that appear only for a short time and then they disappear. Users can also save the photos they take to their camera roll to be stored on their phones to view later, or they can screenshot the pictures that people send them to be saved that they can access later. So thinking about how Snapchat affects memory, sort of the popular misconception that people usually think of is that taking a picture of something will enhance the memory of that event or person or object. For example, it might be common to think that if you really want to remember your honeymoon vacation to Hawaii, that you should take as many pictures as possible to remember that trip in its fullest sense. While this makes sense in theory, the science behind it tells a different story. Research indicates that taking a photo of something actually decreases the likelihood that you will accurately remember that event or photo or object or whatever you're taking a picture of, and we'll talk more about the science behind that in just a little bit. There are a number of effects on memory that taking a photo, or specifically using Snapchat, have been shown. In a minute, I'll talk about the research evidence that explains why taking a photo decreases the memory associated with it. This point is a major part of an article in neurosciencenews.com that elaborates on the phenomenon. So just saying that if you physically take a photo, whether that's on Snapchat or on your camera or something like that, it will decrease the accuracy that you'll remember what you took the photo of later, like when you're trying to remember it. Next, an article on the popular news site Vice.com describes the state of inattention to your surrounding events when you're physically taking the photo. When you stop to take a photo, perhaps at like a wedding or a concert or something like that, you're taking yourself out of the moment and losing focus of the in-person experience. Therefore, that will decrease your ability to remember that event or moment later on. The third effect on memory has to do more with the temporary nature that the Snapchat platform is famous for. Since things disappear so quickly, having a back and forth conversation with someone is pretty difficult. It's not uncommon when using the app to totally forget what you sent or what the other person said, since the act of taking the photo, adding some text, and sending it only takes a few seconds. So that makes conversations a little bit harder because you have to remember what you said for it to be an effective conversation. So there are two main research articles that I found that specifically focus on how Snapchat affects attention and memory. This first one that's on the screen is done by two researchers from the United Kingdom, and they really investigate how Snapchat and memory interact with sexual behavior and risk for young people. So that's a whole other part of the article that I won't really get into because that's not really memory, but it is pretty interesting. This was the first research done of this nature. So sort of a pilot study. So the researchers used a focus group method to sit down and talk to several students, or several groups of 18-year-old participants to discuss how they felt Snapchat affected their memory and their behavior, and just collected some qualitative data, sort of anecdotally, through that method. Some of the overarching themes that arose from these focus groups were the difficulties associated with continuing conversations, like I mentioned, since things disappear so quickly and they're hard to remember. This also causes problems if two people that are in the conversation have contradicting memories of the conversations or events and they have nothing to look back on because, like I said a million times, they disappear. So this is prevalent and problematic in the lives of young adults, and it came up a lot in their focus groups. The second piece of literature is a study conducted by researchers at the University of California who investigated the accuracy and likelihood that taking a photo will assist in the memory of the thing you took a photo of. The main hypothesis in this study was that taking a photo will decrease the memory. So sort of that's what they were looking for to see if that was actually true. The study had participants take a photo of something on Snapchat in one session and then try to remember it, and then simply look at the object without taking a photo in another session, and then they found that taking a photo on Snapchat made the participants less likely to remember what the object was, or they couldn't remember as many details about it, things like that. This indicates that there's some sort of memory impairment associated with taking the photo on Snapchat. This phenomenon described in the article, which I found really interesting, was called cognitive offloading. This is where it's the memory deficit that's associated with taking a photo because your brain is relying on the photo being stored somewhere else that's not your brain. And so you don't have to think about like keeping it in your mind as much, and you just rely on the fact that it's located somewhere else. And so that's kind of why you're more likely to not remember it if you know that there's a photo out there somewhere of the thing you're trying to remember. So there are quite a few memory concepts and terms that are related to these findings. First, attention, as shown in both of the articles I just talked about, attention matters a lot in taking the photo to remember it. If you focus more attention on what you were taking a photo of rather than taking it to look at later, you'll be able to remember it better. So if you really hyper-focus on what you're taking a picture of and think, I want to remember this, that will help a lot more than just say, oh, I can look back at the photo later and it will be okay, I don't need to know it. Episodic memory is the memory of any event or happening and the details associated with it. So things like your first kiss or the time you broke your arm, what the weather was like during those moments, or things like that. Frequently, people take photos of things to remember them and their events and their lives that they want to remember. So if you stop to take a photo during an episode in your life that you think is important and photo worthy, you're likely to decrease the memory in your mind of that event by, again, taking yourself out of the moment just a little bit. Memory erasure was a concept in the book that I noticed was pretty similar to cognitive offloading that I mentioned, where your brain is just able to get rid of seemingly useless information to make more room for important things. So there's no point in to storing all of these important memories if they're just going to be stored on your phone. Like, there's no point, and you'd rather just have things that are actually important in your mind. Finally, rehearsal is a memory concept that can increase the accuracy to which you remember something. This concept is most easily demonstrated by someone telling you their phone number without being able to write it down. You repeat it in your mind over and over again until you can add it to your phone or write it down, or you just have it plain memorized. You just repeat it over and over again. If you take a photo of something and just save it to your phone immediately, there's no need for rehearsal. Since rehearsal helps with memory, it makes sense that without rehearsal, the memory will decrease. So since you don't need the rehearsal, because you can just save the phone, then you're not going to remember it as well. So just to sum up everything that I've kind of covered, Snapchat influences memory more than we might think. In our everyday life, it makes sense to do it the easy way, just take a photo and save it without much thought. However, the research indicates that doing this will actually decrease the likelihood that you'll remember something. This is because our brain shifts to relying more on what is stored in our phone and on other devices, and so we don't make the conscious effort to remember or encode those new memories. It has also been shown that the more attention we pay to the thing we are taking a photo of, the more we are able to remember it, and if we consciously rehearse that memory, this influence could potentially lessen and we could remember things better. Overall, Snapchat and taking photos influences our memory, possibly negatively the way that you look at it, but it is awfully convenient just to take a photo and save it and not have to take up that storage in your mind of remembering it. And then these are the references that I used throughout the presentation. Thank you for watching.